Welcome everyone to the CIMA Management Case Study Exam online workshop. The purpose of this workshop is to kickstart your exam preparation. And I hope that together with Mary Jane, who is our tutor today, we are going to deliver that to you. Just maybe some administration things at the beginning. I expect this workshop to last for around 90 minutes. We are going to cover really interesting topics. Mary Jane is a tutor, and I've been a CIMA student myself before, so I've gone through the case study exam. That's why I can share some inputs from me as well. And at the end of this workshop, we are going to show you our, I call it a bonus. We have prepared a follow-up series of the workshops where we are going to do the online practice sessions, which we are going to give you a short preview today later on. So just stay till the end of the workshop because we are going to give you a big discount for that. Okay. I guess we can start.
Yeah. So good morning and welcome to everyone. I'm glad you could join us in today's workshop. So my name is Mary Jane, as I've been introduced by Justina. This workshop is hosted by Practice Test Academy, and this is on the management case study exam for the February 2018 sitting. Again, Justina was talking a little bit about administration and a little bit of housekeeping. So I think I don't hear anybody else online anymore. So I'm assuming that everybody's mic is muted and the webcam is switched off. If you can just check at your end. We just don't want to get a bit of distraction and feedback issues during the session. Speaking of audio visual, so if you are experiencing any kind of technical problems, please type them into the chat box so we are made aware of it. There is a slide up on the screen at the moment, and I hope you guys can see it. Unfortunately, I can't see the chat box from where my slide is, so I can't see feedback, but Justina will advise me if there are any. I'd like to mention the fact we are recording this session, and you guys may have had already received the slide pack prior to starting this session today. Questions will come at the end of the session. So I just want to go forward with the slide. There it is. Okay, so here we are, Justina and I. We are the co-presenters. A little bit about myself. I can turn it over to Justina just now. So again, my name is Mary Jane. I am a CIMA member. I've been an associate of CIMA for probably about 4 or 5 years now. I'm based in Canada. So aside from my CIMA qualifications, I'm also a Canadian CPA. Been teaching and presenting the CIMA management case study since its inception in 2015. I've also held P1, P2 classes. So my forte is the performance pillar. I tutor and I write materials. And that's me in a nutshell. So I'll turn it over to Justina, who will introduce a little bit about herself, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Just to maybe add a little bit more to what Mary Jane has mentioned, because we are not really good advocates about when it comes to speaking about ourselves. Mary Jane has a really huge experience in finance and in tutoring. She's been tutoring and working in finance for the last 20 plus years.
Yes.
So really big experience. And what is actually a very good point right now that's going to be very useful for you is that she actually worked for Sherwit Search Services, which is what this case study is about. So this is something that I hope that you are going to use her experience in that. Okay, as for me, well, you can see my picture. Very photoshopped. I'm sorry for that. So originally I'm coming from Poland, but the last 1/3 of my life I spent in Switzerland. As I mentioned already, I've been a CIMA student myself, and I've been passing a case study exam according to the 2015 syllabus already. And in 2015, after I got my second baby, I decided to quit my corporate life, and I work for Big Four, and then afterwards I switched to one of the biggest FMCG companies in the world. So I decided to quit my corporate life to focus on my family and on Practice Test Academy. As Practice Test Academy, I treated as my third baby. The whole idea to create Practice Test Academy came in 2015 when I was actually passing my last exams. And since then, I'm really devoted to providing value and materials for CIMA students. Okay, so I really hope that you are going to enjoy this workshop. So let's move on.
Okay. So today, we have our outline on the slide up ahead. We have 5 sections. The first probably 3 sections are heavily into the pre-scene and into the MCS. So the first part would talk about the MCS. Why do we need to do MCS? How is the MCS marked? The importance of knowing actually where you're going or what you're trying to achieve here. Number 2, section 2 concerns the pre-scene. How do we use the pre-scene material? We've been given a lot of information on the pre-scene material, and we need to probably find out how do we get more information out of the pre-scene, right? There's a lot of information, and as well as I'd say some are useful, some aren't, and you need to be able to determine which one is and which one isn't. You'll also be finding out your role as a finance manager on the pre-scene company. Our pre-scene company is Norton. It is in the oil and gas industry, but the pre-scene focus is actually on the Finance Operations Shared Service Center, which is the FOSSC for short. I'll talk a little bit more about the pre-scene when we get to section 2. And like Justina said, I do work for a shared service company actually, and the setup with Norton is very similar to what we have at the office. Section 3, importance of mocks practice. We are looking at the case study, studying for the case study, and preparing for the case study is a little different to how you would prepare for your normal, I'd say E2, F2, P2 studies, in that there is I'd say a practicum aspect to it. So I think we're going to talk about why it's important to practice and why it's important to go through mock exams. And we'll do a little bit of a live demo at the end to see what you can expect on exam day. Then section 4, question and answer. So any kind of questions or anything, we should, I think, leave it till the end so we can cover them in depth if you have any questions for today or the MCS, okay? And right at the very end, section 5, there will be a special bonus which Justina will cover. I won't say too much because I might spill the mystery. But yeah, that's it for today. And then we'll go through now for our first section. Okay, prior to starting, I think this is Justina's actually section. I just wanted to find out if you guys are, just a little bit of answering polls or anything like that. Sorry, I'm going to just switch it a little bit off. Ooh, okay, there's some writings here. I didn't even see that. But I've just gone into the chat box. I just wanted to find out what kind of pool of students do we have for today. So you can just type it into the chat box as to like if you're retaking MCS, are you new to the case study preparation, or did you come from the OCS? So we should have at least 3 kinds of students, right? those that are newbies coming from never had case study exams before, and this is so very all new. Okay, and then you would have people that have come from OCS, so they have some sort of idea as to what to expect, except that it's in another level. And then, like I said, we might have some participants who are, veterans in the management case study. They've taken it before and they just kind of didn't make it. Okay, I see actually quite a few of us are new to the MCS, so this is good. This is something I'd say this is a good start for your preparation. You'll learn a little bit about the MCS, really. Why do we need to do the MCS? I suppose a lot of it is you don't know what to expect. So this is a good start. Okay, so now I'll go back to our presentation and I'll hand this over to Justina, who will, I believe, cover this section first. Justina?
Yep, I'm here. If you could just share the screen.
Is it section 1?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it not showing?
Nope.
Okay, just wait. This is crazy. Sorry. I'm going to do that sharing again.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so here in this first section, we are just going to talk about what management case study is examining. And I will just give you maybe a very silly analogy. Just imagine that you have to go, let's say, from London to Paris by car, and you don't have your GPS. And so you go into the car, you start driving, and after a few hours, instead of the big sea, the big water, you start to see the mountains. And you just start to think like, okay, maybe I'm not on the right road. I'm not going the right direction. And this is maybe a silly analogy, but this is actually what the case study exam, what you should do with the case study exam. And why? Because if you do not have the guidelines for what the case study is examining, what is it all about, then I'm sorry to bring it to you, but you are not going to pass the exam. So first, the question we need to ask ourselves, like, why was it introduced in the first place, and what actually CIMA case study is examining? And what I can tell you that what it is not examining is actually, it's not examining your whole knowledge of the whole syllabus. And I receive plenty of emails from different students who are asking me that, no, we would like to do a proper revision of the E2, P2, and F2 syllabus. And do you think that half a year is enough? And to be honest, in my opinion, this is not something that you should focus too much attention on, because at the end, if you think about it, CIMA is a really well-established certification body. Why would such a well-known and established certification body redo or test your knowledge twice from the same thing? That's not the point. The point of the case study here is kind of to apply what you have learned from the 3 papers and to see how well you understand that and how you can apply that to the scenario, the pre-seen scenario, which is Norton and FOSSC. So this is my short introduction. I hope you kind of got my point, that it's really, really important to understand why it was introduced in the first place, and we are going to cover that a little bit in the next slide. Okay, so I guess we can move on.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I didn't know that was interactive. Okay, so there's the next slide. So the big question of why. Are you covering this, or do you want me to cover it?
I guess you can take that.
Okay,
I'll cool. Whenever I can.
Okay, so yeah, so Justina actually mentioned some very good points about the MCS, and talking about her analogy, that is a very good analogy. A lot of students, especially when they start their MCS preparation, is that the issue that they have is that they don't know what to expect. And so as such, the analogy is good, which means that, okay, ultimately your goal would be to pass the MCS, and that's your destination. But how do I get to the destination? So if I don't have the GPS, I don't know what I'm aiming for, or let's say I don't know how to go about what I'm aiming for. It's kind of hard. So you're just going about in the dark, and hoping to get there out where you want to be at the end. So that's very good. We need guidelines. We need to know, okay, why is it exactly being examined? So the first thing we need to know is, why was it introduced? It was introduced because CIMA felt that they needed to develop an exam that mirrored real life. Okay, so case studies are based on real life companies. The pre-seen companies that we have, they're in specific industries, and the industries are not, I wouldn't say they're generic. Okay, so today we have the oil and gas industry, we have the shared service industry. It is totally different from the industry of the past. We've had auto car manufacturers, we had office furniture manufacturers. We also had some like franchised companies. So each case study showcases an industry, and it's always based on certain events on real life. Another thing that CIMA wanted was, they wanted to develop the students, or the members that they have. Ultimately, these students, you guys, students, we were all once students. So us students become members of CIMA. And what they wanted was that the members of CIMA should be a certain kind of accountant, okay? They want to mold you as to what type of individual are you in a work environment. CIMA wants to develop us into well-rounded professionals, okay? So CIMA, of course, wants the best for us. We need to be more than just number crunchers, you know? They always tell us accountants are boring, right? We need to be more than that. I'm sure many of you will agree, if you're working for a company, accountants' roles have evolved. They are no longer just people who put in numbers on a piece of paper and then tell the guys in management, okay, this is what happened last year. Our role is so much more than that. In companies, they ask us to look at strategically where the company is headed, so that management can make the right decisions for the business. It's almost also like a job interview, this case study exam. You put it together on your answers. What happens is, CIMA also needs to know that you're able to convey what you know and your knowledge of the different aspects of the management level into you're able to actually use it practically and apply it to the scenario, and be able to actually tell convey whatever your ideas are, or I'd say like decisions or recommendations that is understandable for other people to read. So when they read it, the examiners, when they look at your answers, that's what they're looking for. Is this person professional? Is this person thinking like a business person? Is this person thinking strategically? That's what they want to see on your answers. So it's almost like a job interview. You're trying to prove something, that you are those things. And then number 4, this Justina touched on this. This is not a retest of E2, P2, and F2. So for a lot of you who have come through Gateway, I know you probably had exceptions on some of the on the OT levels, and so you might not have had the same kind of studying that you would have done on E2, P2, F2. But not to worry. What happens here is, this is not a retest. It's not a retest of theory. Of course, you will need to know theory. We use theory to structure the answer. We don't use theory. So basically, this is not a test where they ask you and there is just one right answer because it's a description of that answer. They want you to apply the theory into the scenario. So you do need a little bit of theory knowledge, but this is what we call reasonable knowledge. This is not extensive knowledge because at the end of the day, this is not a retest. It's not in any kind of way similar to the OT exams that you might have gone through.
And here maybe I can add one more point, because if you think about the case study, so they are basically mirroring real life. And what I would suggest here is that you can actually use the experience that you currently have at your work and to put it in your answers. So for example, if they are testing like how companies, I don't know, merge, or I don't know, the pricing of products and things like that, you can actually think about how your company has done that. And if you don't know the theory, like, I don't know, target costing and things like that, then you can just describe it using little different terms, and it will actually prove the point. So here they are trying to figure out what kind of a business professional you are. And, it happens in real life as well that you do not have the full theory covered. So you just need to be creative, and you should just really, really use the common sense.
Yeah, that's good. So I've gone to the next slide. We have the management case study competencies. Okay, so there is a competency wheel that CIMA uses for each level of their case study. If you come from the OCS, you will know that the OCS also has the same kind of wheel, and the strategic level also has one. So once you finish your management level, you will meet this wheel again when you get to your SCS exams. Now, what does this wheel tell us? There are 4 areas that CIMA actually tests students on, and it is technical, business, people, and leadership. So the reason for this wheel is, again, like I mentioned, they want us to be well-rounded professionals. So aside from knowing the theory and the technical knowledge, they want us to be able to relate to people, as well as show leadership skills while we are doing the work that we do. This is very similar to real life. When you, like I said, when you are working for a company, you don't just work and crunch numbers. Yes, for sure. When you first started out, you don't know what you need to do. So the first couple of probably weeks or months, you're doing the groundwork. But as soon as you learn something new, your knowledge expands, the company promotes you or move you up, and you're more of a, let's say, mid-level person in the company. And then you do other things. You do more things where you analyze certain things. And you actually make choices. You make suggestions to your manager. And then you move up. This is a management level. So technically, you are a manager. When you look at your manager has decision-making capabilities. And that is no different from you. When you get to this stage, you are also a decision maker. So at the end of the day, when you are asked for your advice or opinion or recommendation, you need to make one for yourself as well. So there we have number 2 section there where I define the technical, business, people, and leadership. Okay, what are these skills? How do I show these skills? I just want to check my notes. Okay, where you want to demonstrate that you can do something. Okay, this is technical skills. Where you try to draw on your technical knowledge. This is like this. This is where theories come in. You're going to try and build structures around your answer. You're going to use theories for that. Where you need to establish that you can apply this in a business setting. That is the business skill that you are showing off there. You also need to know if you can take people with you on your journey. You can communicate with all levels of people, because in real life, not everybody is an accountant. Where you work, you obviously have other people in the business that don't know accounting at all. How do you communicate with these people? You should be able to convey your message across to them and make them understand what you are trying to achieve. And then lastly, at the management level, as I mentioned, there is a bit of leadership skills required. You need to exhibit that you can influence people, make sound judgment. Okay, so when you're asked for decision, your decision needs to be sound. It needs to be logical, and it needs to be sensible. You can't recommend something that you know in practical terms it will never happen. You can't dream as such. So when you make suggestions or recommendations, you also need to make sure that they're logical. Now we need to understand the MCS marking. Okay. The MCS marking is actually two parts. There's two, let's say, sets of hurdles that you need to get through. So we've been talking a little bit about this wheel and these 4 skills that are under this wheel. The first step would be when you are taking the exam, you will have to get at least a moderate level or a strong level on each of this skill. The way to do that is that at the exam, you will be presented with 4 questions. In each of the question, there will be at least 2 to 3 requirements under each question. Each requirement will allow you, or you will be given the opportunity to showcase a skill for each requirement. So let's say the requirement is to negotiate a new contract with a supplier. That might be a people skill that you need to showcase, or maybe it's a business skill that you need to showcase. CIMA does not tell you what skills are attached to each requirement, not at the exam anyway. You will find out after the exam, but not the exam. There are certain things that you know when you go into the exam, and there are certain things that you do not. So when you go in, you know that there's going to be 4 questions. You know that there's going to be 2 to 3 requirements in each question, and that's all you'll know. You won't know which skills are associated with what kind of requirement. So the best is always, we always tell students, just answer all the requirements. Because if you miss one, that means you might miss showing a skill. And ultimately then, you might then receive a fail there because you didn't demonstrate enough of that skill. So that's the first part, getting moderate and strong levels on the skills. The second part of the marking, okay, there's still marks when you actually do the exams, okay? They just don't equate to 100%. Although the wheel tells you it's 100%, on the real exam, they scale the marking. So the 100% becomes 150. And why do they do this? They scale the marking because the exams are on a different level of difficulty. Each exam is different. When you go into the exam room, you will get 5 different sets of variant. We don't know which one you're going to get. Some students will get an easy variant. Some students will get difficult variants. So how do you actually compare like for like? The way that CIMA has done it is they scale the marks. So the easy variants will be scaled, I'd say harshly, but you know, that's probably like too harsh a word, but that is what they do. And obviously the difficult exams will be probably scaled a little more leniently, just so that it levels the playing field for all the students. Even if you get an easy variant, it is now comparable to the difficult variant. Now, when it's scaled, the passing mark is 80 over 150. So when you hear people talk about the 80 as a passing mark, it is not 80%. It is 80 over 150. And now to get this, you will need to make sure that when all your answers or marks are added up, that they actually scale back to 80 over 150. So that's the two sides of marking. You don't need to get bogged down as to how CIMA scales the mark. It's not a very transparent process. And for the reason because they don't want to classify that, oh, this variant was easy and this variant wasn't. They don't want to do that. But know for sure that that is actually the reasoning for that. And the best approach is always just to answer all the requirements. Then you don't need to worry about, will I be able to get points for what skills? And then you don't need to worry about, will they scale and will I get 80 over 150? You need to just answer the requirements properly. Justina, do you have anything to add before I go to section 2?
No.
Okay.
You did perfectly. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so now we've come to section 2, which is on the pre-scene. I'm very excited for the pre-scene. As Justina mentioned earlier, I am part of the shared service industry. And again, Norton's setup is actually very similar to our setup in the office. I like to think that the shared service industry or the shared service center is actually something of an accounting department on overdrive. It's centralized. Everybody is accounting minded as such. The only thing is, if you're in a shared service industry, you actually feel very much like a production employee because you meet targets. There are different things that happen that don't normally happen when you're on just an accounting department. For most people, I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with the shared service concept, but like I said, just think about it, that Norton is this one big company and the FOSSC is its accounting department. It's not a department as such. It could be, in this case, actually, we were told that it's a cost center. So it's a business unit in itself. I'm not entirely sure if it's a subsidiary. It's not mentioned on the pre-scene, so I won't be able to tell you about that. But at the end of the day, it's a cost center because there's no real income that this shared service actually make. They're all about costs, right? Okay, going back to the pre-scene. The pre-scene is about 25 to 30 pages. And you're probably wondering, okay, I've got this 25 to 30 pages that I have to read. What do I get from this 25 to 30 pages? Now, there are many things that you actually can get as an information. There are the information that they actually write out on the pre-scene. And there are also the information that is not mentioned on the pre-scene that you can probably guess. Well, guess is the wrong word. I'd say maybe have a likelihood of understanding that that is actually what is happening on the pre-scene. Now, I have something that I call active reading. And you're probably wondering, okay, what does she mean by active reading? Of course, when I'm reading, I'm active. And that's not what I mean by active reading. Active reading is basically when you're reading something, you are drawing conclusions on what you are reading. So with the pre-scene, that is exactly what you need to do. When you are spoken about, one example, okay? When you're spoken and you see on the pre-scene that Norton is a global company, Okay, they talk about Norton as a group of companies. There's a lot of subsidiaries, and when you look at the pre-scene, you remember seeing that it's they have subsidiaries all over the place. They have subsidiaries in different regions. This would indicate to you that Norton probably deals with a lot of foreign exchange transactions. There's a bit of translation in its financial statements. And at the same time, you know that when they put together the financial statements, there is consolidation happening. So in all of that, I gathered something a little bit more. So that's what I mean by active reading. You gain some sort of other information when you're reading the pre-scene. Some of the main elements that you look at on a pre-scene, you need the background. Where did this company come from? Why is it successful? Looking at the FOSSC. So there's two parts. You're looking at Norton because Norton is the primary business, what we call the primary business. And then the FOSSC is basically an add to Norton. The FOSSC is the focus of the pre-scene. That's a definite. But at the same time, you need to have a little bit of background as well in the primary company, because, you know, it's an analogy of it is basically you have a body, and, you know, if the heart is not there, then the body just falls limp. So it's the same. If Norton is not successful, the FOSSC would not be in operation for long. They get their funding from Norton to fund this operation. So if Norton is not successful, the FOSSC also have issues. Operations and structure. This tells us a lot about how a company operates its business. Okay, how has it become successful? Now, on the pre-scene, an example of this is Norton has been mentioned that it has been in business since the early part of the 20th century. And that would mean that this company has been successful for so long. It's facing challenges at the moment. There's a lot of challenges that it faces. But at the end of the day, it's been in business for that long. Can't be that it's not successful. It's an established business. It's a mature business. So we can probably gauge that it's been managed properly up to a certain point. It's doing things right. Maybe things are starting to, I'd say, go wrong for it because there are risks that it faces, new challenges that it faces, and these are challenges that are in the market. So there's a lot of information that you can glean already by looking at how the operations are being run. The FOSSC, there was a lot of information about how the FOSSC is run on those pre-scene material. They look at the structure, who is the boss, and who is your boss's boss. We had one page where it talks about who's the head of the FOSSC and then the structure in the FOSSC. We have Amber, who is the head of the FOSSC, and it's mentioned she's a member of the board. So which means she also still reports to somebody that is on the Norton board. The financials. As accountants know, financials always tell us stories. They always tell us what are the trends in this company, where the company is at the moment, how healthy is the financial health of this company, how well did we do last year, and how well did we fare this year. We have budgets that tell us, okay, this is where the company wants to go. Are we going to achieve it? So these are numbers. Even if the numbers are just put together, there are stories behind the numbers, or there are some information that you can actually draw from. if you actually look at the numbers. Calculations are not expected at the exams. So for people who did not know that, there are no calculations, or there are no extensive calculations at the exam. You may be expected to calculate a little bit, like just basic calculations maybe, but nothing extensive. However, when I say that, this does not mean you ignore the numbers, because there's no calculation. You're not going to do anything with the numbers. You still have to do something with the numbers, okay? What we try and do is, when you have a pre-C, we try and work out different ratios, which is related to liquidity, profitability, and gearing, and all that, to help you understand some of the financial issues that the company may have. And we actually have a financial ratios pack at the Practice Test Academy that helps you with this as well. It helps you look at, is it healthy? It actually also helps you look at or draw conclusions as to what the numbers are trying to tell you. And then lastly, we've got press releases or newspaper articles. And these are normally right at the end of the pre-C material. Some of the things that you can draw from the press releases is that it could highlight the market trend of that business, could highlight issues that may be happening in the market for this business. These are good information, because sometimes the requirements do come from the press releases. Only caveat that I have there is that you don't assume just because it's on a press release that you will get that topic at the exam. It doesn't work like that. It's more of a hit and a miss kind of thing. So I would not try and put a lot of faith, just saying that, okay, if it's on a press release, I'm going to study this because it's going to come out. You must study it because it's on a press release, but you must study it nevertheless, whether it comes out on the exam or not. You don't know that. It's very difficult to determine for sure. Okay, so now on the pre-scene. So where do you fit in the pre-scene? And this is actually where this slide tells us where we are. The pre-scene gives you context and background on the company that is being focused on the management case study. But at the same time, you're probably asking, okay, what is my role in this pre-scene? Why do I need to know anything about the background? Why do I need to put it into context? Where am I? You are a finance manager, and you will always be a part of this pre-scene company. And I believe the pre-scene material actually tells you what your role is. It just doesn't tell you a lot about the role. What normally happens is you are some sort of finance manager for the company. And in some cases, it's very clear who your boss is, where you are in the department. Unfortunately, here for our pre-scene material for the FOSSC, it's not as clear. You are a finance manager at the FOSSC, but it's not quite clear where you are in the different departments that they have. If you guys remember that page where the structure of the FOSSC is shown, there are a couple of departments, AR, AP, and there's like payroll, and there's PM, project management, and then there's like some other roles on the side that says HR and I've forgotten the other one, financial reporting, I believe. And where are you in this? There's no trace where you are. You're just an FOSSC finance manager. So you could be anywhere in this scenario. By the way, each one of those departments or services or functions are something that a finance manager would know a little bit about, especially if you're studying CIMA. As a role in your finance the qualities in a finance manager is also important to determine what you need to do when you're at the exams. Okay, so we have 6 different qualities that we have on the slide. And the first one talks about understanding the task. Now, why is this important? As a finance manager or as an employee who is thinking of moving up, it is always good to know what is being asked of you. Your boss will give you a task or a requirement that you need to be able to report back on. You'll get an email and it will tell you, okay, dear finance manager, I want you to do so and so and so and so. So you need to be able to follow the task. You need to understand the task, so you need to be able to put together some sort of report that your boss needs. You won't be able to put together a report if you don't know why he wants the report. If he just tells you, well, you tell me, it's very difficult to understand then if it's like that. With the CIMA exam, it is always very clear on the exam paper what the boss is requiring of you. CIMA is not into hiding the requirements or the tasks that are on the exam paper. They will always tell you, I would like you to do, and then they set out what you need to do. The only other issue there is obviously not knowing maybe which topic to include in your answer. But the tasks are always laid out where everybody can see it. It's obvious. That's number one. You need to know how to understand the task or what you're being asked to do. Something that you can probably work on when you want to understand the task better is practicing with mocks. You guys will know it's practice makes perfect. So the more mocks you do, the more exams you do, the better you get at it. The better you are when you're facing. It's sort of like receiving an assignment, and it's telling you, okay, you need to do this at this time, and this is what I need you to do. You get into the scheme of things as such, and you start knowing what to expect. Not in terms of content, but you will develop some sort of system when you're starting to do your preparation to do your practice mocks. Second quality, answering the question. And you're probably wondering, okay, this is obviously obvious. I would obviously answer the question when I'm asked a question. But how many times have you heard your boss telling you, you're not answering my question? I suppose, it does happen, right? And the thing there is sometimes when students try and do the exam, think about this. This exam is time pressured. There's a lot of pressure for the students. And one of the biggest issue for students is that when they're on this exam, they get flustered. They think about, they try to read what's on the paper, but sometimes they understand it differently. So what I would suggest for you to guys do is when you're faced with a question, understand what it is actually asking you, okay? You may think, oh, the question probably was not clear. Maybe they just didn't understand it. That's why the students did badly. But no, that's possible, but also the other side could be possible where the students didn't understand the question because they didn't want to understand the question. That also happens a lot. Students sometimes have this habit. I'd say maybe ill-prepared students, okay? Because ill-prepared students tend to do this. They would study a lot about certain topics. So they pick and choose the topics that they want to study for. And then now you get to the exam, and now you have a question about, let's say, for example, it's a question about pastel. So pastel analysis. But this question is only asking you to look at the political aspect of PESTEL. So remember, PESTEL has 6 aspects, and you're only looking at one. But what the student will do, or the ill-prepared student will do, is basically what is known as a brain dump. They will dump everything that they know about PESTEL into the answer, hoping that they'll gain a lot of marks because they can describe PESTEL and they can do all the 6 aspects. And, I'm just putting all that I know about PESTEL. I'm going to look at economy, I'm going to look at social, but meanwhile, the question is only asking you about the political side of things. So think about this. If you are an employee and you are answering a question for your employer, your boss, do you give your boss too much information about all the other things that he never asked you for? You don't. So it's the same thing. Answer the question that is being asked of you. Don't give too much to show off as such. Giving more than what is not being asked will not gain you marks at the MCS. It doesn't happen like that. Unfortunately, it just doesn't, it just kind of shows that you're not following instructions. So that's the problem. And that's a quality that you'll want a finance manager to have, is to know what the question is asking and answering it properly. The third quality is timekeeping. Okay, timekeeping. Time management is always an issue at the exam. It's a time-pressured exam. You have 3 hours to complete it. 3 hours may sound a lot, but no, with 4 questions and about, we will assume that there's like 2 requirements in each question. There's 8 requirements and you have 3 hours to do it. You still need to try and understand the question. You still need to identify the task. So now in all of this, I have to put together a comprehensive answer, but the answer needs to be understandable and it needs to be presented well and all, okay? So time management is always an issue. This is the number 1 problem of students when they go into the MCS. It is always time management. And the way to actually help you with this is you need to make sure you keep time. Okay. And that's probably obvious, but it's very hard to do, especially when you're doing the exam. When you go into the exam, the first page that you will see, it will tell you there are 4 exam questions. And then what the allocated time is for each question. The allocated time will tell you how much you need to write per section, okay? The more time allocated to it, the more answers you need to produce. Most of the time on the MCS level, because it's split into 4 questions, there are 45-minute questions, okay? How do you do this if you have requirements? The requirement is not just 1 requirement per question. As I've said, it's about 2 to 3. So the assumption here is when you're trying to allocate time, you need to allocate it based according to the requirements that is being asked of you. You have a 45-minute question. You have 2 requirements. You split it into 2. So that means you will spend about just over 20 minutes for each requirement. If you get 3 requirements, you'll divide it by 3. So that means 15 minutes per requirement. This way, you ensure that you give enough time for each requirement and no one requirement is more than the other. One way to practice timekeeping is to do the practice mocks. A lot of things actually get practice on when you do practice mocks. It's not just the answering of the mocks, it is also how you do timekeeping, how you think of stuff. So, but we'll deal with that a little bit on the 3rd section. But that's timekeeping for you. Our 4th quality is communication. Communication is some students tend to be a little more, I'd say they're better at communicating. They write better, so it comes through on the answers. But let me tell you, if you are a little bit of unsure about your communication skill, just try it out on a person that you trust and see if you come across as professional, or if there's some issues with the way you communicate stuff. You need to be able to communicate the different ideas that you have, and they have to come through on the answers. Remember, there is no link between you and the examiner. The only way that you will be able to convey anything is through your answers. So your answer needs to show that you are highly skilled, that you have leadership qualities, that your answer is technically sound, and those things need to come through on your answers. So communication is important. CIMA wants to test you on how you write, and because there's really, as such, they want to make sure that they produce accountants that are worthy of the CIMA accreditation. Okay, when you receive emails at work, if you receive some kind of email where it doesn't make sense, or it sounds unprofessional, you get turned off, you get frustrated, and that is what it is. So they just want to make sure that you are at a certain level and you are communicating properly. The best way to do this, again, would be to practice the mocks. You get better at it, right? And maybe look at some suggested solutions. How are the suggested solutions put together? This provides you a little bit of insight as to what is required of you in the answers, or what kind of words to use. Some words are very casual, so you would not want to see them on an email to a boss, right? I'm sure you guys understand that when you email in your boss, there's a certain kind of that familiarity is not there on that email. You want to sound that, I suppose you want to say, I want to impress my boss, so I want to sound clever and I want to sound professional. So it's very similar. You need to remember that when you're putting together your answer. And then the fifth one, it says their reasonable knowledge. So we spoke a little bit about this earlier, about technical knowledge and having reasonable knowledge. You are not to be an expert on everything, okay? You also don't want to have that reputation as a know-it-all, because you're not. When you're a finance manager, you need to be able to know what your strengths are, but at the same time, you need to know if you are not good at something, that you have the resource available to you to tap somebody else to help you. So here, financial managers or finance managers are not all know-it-alls. They don't know everything about anything, or anything about everything. Sorry. You don't have to be expert about everything. You don't have to write. It's almost like brain dumping. You don't need to write everything that you know about a certain topic. You just need to be able to show that you have reasonable knowledge in a topic or in an area. It's not a retest of theory as well. So, at the end of the day, you just need to be able to show that you can apply whatever the theory that has been given to you, or you want to use a certain theory and you can apply this theory on your answers. The sixth quality, it is professionalism. Now, this is obviously a given, and it links back to all the other 5 qualities that we've just spoken about. When you think about somebody who's professional, or think about somebody who's professional in your company, and you'd think, okay, this person, understands the requirements, and he knows what needs to be done. He answers the questions that is being asked of him, and he doesn't give any other added, maybe useless information about other things. He keeps time well. He arrives in meetings on time. He arrives to work on time. He is there when you need him. Okay. He communicates well. His emails all sound professional. They're business related, and he doesn't sound like somebody off the street. And then he would have reasonable knowledge about certain topics when you ask him. So that professionalism, it links back to all the other 5 qualities that a finance manager is expected to have. Okay, so now we have another section on the pre-scene, the do's and don'ts. Some of the do's, we actually covered a lot of this already, so I'm just going to breeze through some of them. Understand the context. How do you do this? Where did the FOSSC come from? Looking at the background, looking at how these companies came about, what makes them successful. I think we spoke a little bit more about that already. Make your own notes. So this might be a little bit of something new. What you need to do when you kickstart your preparation is that you need to make your own notes too. We do provide some materials at Practice Test Academy. We have the different analysis. We have strategic analysis, industry analysis, even the financial ratios and the pre-scene analysis. And these are supposed to help you put together some notes. You can use them, but you can't just rely on everything that's there. You need to also make your own, because you know what? At the end of the day, when you're reading your pre-scene, you may be able to see something that we could not see. We try to be extensive, but at the end of the day, you can't, it's not 100% everything is there. Okay, so you also need to make your own notes. These are notes that you will use when you are thinking about the pre-scene in the next few weeks. What are things that are important, you think, for this pre-scene? Undertake limited industry research plus real-life examples. We have an industry pack at Practice Test Academy, but at the same time, this is something that you could do on your own too. When we say limited, we talk about not, don't go overboard, okay? Industry research needs to happen because not everybody is in the same industry. So if I was not from the shared service industry, I would undertake a little bit more in the industry research on the company. I'm not in the oil and gas industry, so I have no idea what happens in the oil and gas industry. I have to do a bit of limited research to find out, okay, these are the risks faced by an oil and gas company. I would not know. My company does not deal with oil and gas, so our market is different. So the only way to get a little bit of connection to the industry would be to undertake some research. Look at real life companies. See what they have done with their companies. What are the events that have happened to them? What kind of risks did they face? How did they overcome it? Those are the things you have to ask when you're doing research. Then number 4, the last one, this is very important. Plenty of practice. Do the mocks. Go on, attend live sessions. You gain a lot of understanding, especially when you are with other students. At the live session, you gain a little bit of understanding how students think, how other students think. With the mocks, it helps you develop your own skill. It develops your answering skill, it develops your timekeeping skill, and all other stuff. Some of the don't fixate on this. Don't fixate on the pre-scene. I'd like to say that you need to know the pre-scene, but I don't want you to be memorizing the pre-scene. That's not the purpose of the pre-scene material. So 1 and 2 of the don'ts is actually sort of the same. It's not a summary of the pre-scene. What you want to know is, what is the pre-scene telling you? Certain information is not a summary. Certain information is what you can gather or draw conclusions on. That's what you're looking for. Okay? No memorization, but you do need to know the pre-scene a little bit more, okay? And understand it a little bit more. Looking for hints, okay? A lot of students try to do this, wanting to find out, okay, what do you think will come up at the exams? There are some likely issues or likely, I'd say likely topics that will come up, but nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can predict what will come up, okay? We base our likely issues pack according to what is said on the pre-scene and what is shown on the pre-scene as likely topics. But this is not, I'd say, the only thing that you need to work on. The hints, there's no hints on the pre-scene material. There's no hidden Easter egg as such. The examiners are not like that. They give you the pre-scene material to give you a background bit of knowledge on the company, and that is all. Okay. Number 4, second guessing the examiner. The examiners, like I said, the examiners don't play tricks on you. There is no trick question, and there is no trick information on the pre-scene. There is just information. Okay, and it is up to you what you draw conclusions on the case study. Some of the analysis that is being done on the pre-scene, I mentioned this a little bit. We have the ratio analysis, which talks a little bit about the numbers that are presented on the pre-scene. Just a little bit of note there is that the pre-scene figures and financials are based on Norton. Okay, it is not on the FOSSC, and the reason for that is it's a consolidated financial statement. If we look at some of the ratios that are covered, we have profitability, gearing, liquidity, efficiency, and then we have a bit of a summary, and that is what we have on our ratio analysis pack at Practice Test Academy. You may be able to do this as well at your end and draw your own conclusion. Again, just make notes and make sure that you include this on your 2 to 3 page study notes. Strategic analysis. Why strategic analysis important? Strategic analysis is important because we want to know where Norton is. What happened to Norton during its past? Where is it headed? And what is it doing now? In the same breath, I would say the FOSSC. How did it came about that the FOSSC was born, and so as such, and where is the future for the FOSSC? Some of the strategic analysis here looks at the business itself, looks at the environment that the business is in, competition, and it even looks at the strategies that they are undertaking to make sure that this business stay sustainable and it stays successful, or it will be successful in achieving what it set out to do. We have a sample strategic analysis, and I've chosen Ansoff's matrix for this one. Ansoff matrix is a strategy tool that the company uses to look at growth and expansion into like what kind of services can they offer, what kind of markets can they get into. It is a business strategy tool. Okay, Ansoff's matrix deals with new products and existing products, and new markets and existing markets. If we look at the screen up ahead, it tells us, okay, this is actually based on the FOSSC, okay? Existing product of the FOSSC, existing services, existing functions, okay, that it offers to its existing market. Now, the market that they have is very limited because it's internal market. It's only the Norton group of companies that are their customers or market. So for market penetration, there's really not much unless we add more subsidiaries to Norton, but they want to make sure that they achieve greater efficiencies and performing the functions that they have. Okay. Then we have new products on existing markets, and this would be adding new functions into the FOSSC. There are a couple of I'd say information that was given on the pre-scene. HR was mentioned to be maybe added into the FOSSC, and financial reporting might be another one that they could look at to be added into the FOSSC. So those functions will be added functions for the FOSSC to perform for these subsidiaries. Then we look at the block that looks at existing products, but now new markets. So think about this as a shared service center. What if the shared service center decides to branch out on its own, become a company as such, right? That offer their services to other companies. Maybe go external. These are some ideas of a strategy for the FOSSC if they want to go out and branch out. And then lastly, we have differentiation, a new product and new market. And this could be, you know, at the FOSSC, we focus a lot on our IT, advanced technology. We focus a lot about automation. Maybe we have a good enough software, in-house software and application to start selling this software and application outside. So that's a little bit of, I'd say, example on a differentiation strategy for the FOSSC at this point. Okay. We also have some samples of industry analysis that we've done. Remember I mentioned there are two industries. We have the primary industry, which is where Norton is, and we have the secondary industry, which is the shared service one. We did a little bit of industry analysis on the petroleum industry. We talk about Norton is a vertically integrated company. In vertically integrated companies, in the petroleum industry, are normally divided into three components. They have what they call the upstream, midstream, and downstream. And if we actually look at the information given here, it would be very similar to the different divisions that Norton has. Upstream is exploration and production. And if you remember correctly, Norton also has this. They have the exploring and extracting. Midstream would be transportation and storage and marketing of the refined petroleum products. And they have this as well, or we assume that they have this. It's just not as a division of the Norton group of companies. And then we have downstream, which is refining. We have a refining division, and then ultimately the distribution of products from oil and gas. And that would probably where the petrol stations would fall under. So in essence, Norton is a vertically integrated company, oil and gas company, and it is in the true sense a vertically integrated oil and gas company. We also have a term in the market where we call super major. Now, super major relates to 6 of the largest publicly traded oil companies in the world. I wrote there that they control 6% of the world's oil. And comparatively, NOCs control 86%. You might wonder what NOC is. An NOC stands for national oil companies. National oil companies are state-owned companies. Their shareholders are the government. I mentioned there that the super majors are vertically integrated. So perhaps Norton could be part of this 6th largest. And it might be the 7th as a super major. Next up, we have an industry analysis on the shared services industry. Now, shared services, it's a provision of a service that is provided by an organization or group where that service had previously been found in more than one part of the organization or group. So, because we have a lot of subsidiaries, we have 200 subsidiaries in Norton. Assume that each subsidiary would have their own AR, AP departments. They would have their own payroll. That is what it means here. They basically centralize all of that to make one such area or group of people or department or division, and all this is done by that division. They share the services amongst the different business units. Some of the functions that are normally found on a shared service center is finance and accounting. That's always the top of the list. And then we have HR, which covers payroll as well. And then we have supply chain management. This would cover a little bit of maybe purchasing. I know in Norton we don't have that. Purchasing is still totally separate from the FOSSC. But supply chain certainly is one of a function that we can normally find on a shared service. IT is another one. IT is maintained by the shared service. It is because technology is such a backbone for any shared service center. The reason that shared service center make it and become successful is because their technology, the technology that is associated to that shared service center is good. Automation happens because of advanced technology and all that. And then one other function is the CRM, which is customer relations. Think maybe call centers. It might be that company has many customers and needs a bit more relationship management going. And so as such, the SSC or shared service center can do that for the group of companies. With Norton, it is not highlighted whether we have a lot of customers. We certainly do because we sell to the public. But, as much as I'd like to say, well, there might be a CRM, there might not be, because ultimately the petrol stations will have their own little, I'd say, customers, and it won't be as big to really be taken care of. And then we've got a couple of real life examples. When talking about oil and gas, it's very hard not to talk about the BP Deepwater Horizon incident. Okay, the BP oil spill, it is also known as that. The BP oil spill is considered to be the largest marine oil spill in the history of the petroleum industry. There's a little bit of a background there at the top of the slide to talk about what happened, the event. And what you can glean from this is that BP was ultimately made responsible for this oil spill. They suffered reputational damage because of this oil spill, as well as they were fined. Okay. So how do you use this example when you are at the exam? When you are putting together your answer, okay, you've studied this now, and just make sure that when you use real life example, make sure that you are using them relevant to what is being asked of you. If the exam talks about maybe bad incidents happening or environmental disasters happening and creating issues for Norton, you could probably bring this up and say, there are many repercussions to an industrial disaster and public negligence, aside from reputational and brand damage that a company suffers. The company could be subjected to legal lawsuit and pay fines if found guilty. So Norton is in the same industry as BP, and this could likely happen to any one of Norton's current prospect. We need to ensure that health and safety is of utmost importance for everyone at Norton. Some of the topic areas that could cover this example would be ethics, environmental disaster, any kind of misconduct or neglect on the part of Norton, as well as if there's a health and safety issue. We have another real-life example, and this time it is on a global service. So this is a shared service company. Okay,
Mary J, if
yes.
I can just mention something here, because it seems that we are running out of time. So we are pressed for time.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to respect the time of our attendees. Okay. So I'm just thinking that this example we can maybe skip because that will be sent to everyone later on, because I'm going to send the slides.
Okay, cool.
So we can, if you can move on to the section 3 and then to the real life example, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So this is very quick. Practicing mock. Why is it important, right? I spoke about this. I'm saying you are able to practice your timekeeping. You're able to practice how to answer your, how to plan your answers. And then it helps you with your thought process, because as you practice, you learn to actually think in a certain way. That was actually all on that slide. And then we've got the practice exam. It's an 8-minute one. Sorry, we're going to go over a little bit. If I can just ask you guys to look at the slide and generate some discussion points on we'll probably cut it down. Maybe I'll do it in 6 minutes. If you can just generate discussion points on this, what kind of answers would you put together? You don't need to answer this in full. I just need some discussion points of what you'd probably discuss when you look at this question. I'll give you the 6 minutes now. Okay, so time's up. What I'd like to do was actually try and find out if you guys were able to generate some kind of, I'd say, discussion points. Justina, you probably will have to help me with this. I can't see my chat box here. Okay. So how did you guys find the question? Were you able to think up of some points with regards to the other 3 quadrants? Here, it tells us that we already have learning and growth. So the 3 other quadrants would be financial, customer, and internal process. So for financial, any kind of points were raised. Just give me at least 3 points or 2 points if you have. Did you raise any kind of...
Okay, so maybe let me just read.
Okay, sorry, I can't see the...
It's weird because you were able before. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So Rosa, she mentioned about the financial quadrant. So metrics could include SSC profitability ratios, liquidity, efficiency. And Quentin mentioned the deadlines are met. What is the average time required to produce tailored report when queried by Norton's management?
Yeah.
Are strategic ratios improving?
Okay.
Then he also mentioned about accounting, the amount of queries raised and their trend, resolution time per queries, debtors and creditors days for cash flow purposes. We also have timeliness, activity assigned to FOSSC is completed on time or not.
Okay.
It may be least to activities.
Yeah. Okay.
Financial aspect ratio analysis.
Okay.
Efficiencies, how we implement the activities.
So for the customer aspect, would you how would you guys have answered customer aspect? So we have only one customer, which is Norton, and I think it's kind of closely related to the financial perspective of the balance scorecard. But you might have come up with things like, I suppose, some kind of I don't know, complaints process, maybe to do with customer perspective. Nothing on customer's perspective?
So complaints from subsidiaries.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
The amount of complaints raised,
yeah, so,
that we are meeting SLAs.
Okay. That's good. And then obviously, lastly, it's internal process. I'd say any kind of suggestions on that internal process?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, sorry. It's internal process. I was actually looking at the internal process perspective. Any kind of measures that any of them will have.
Question is, do we have a process for each task?
Okay. Yeah.
Sickness levels, downtime, IT downtime.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So, you guys have generated quite some good examples of measures, and I'm very glad. So you do understand how to do this as such. This is probably a slide that's not on your pack, but I asked Justina to just pull it out so that I could, surprise you with it. But it's actually, this is my sample of maybe an answer plan. So that's what the generation of discussion points are. It's to actually formulate your plan as to what you want to talk about when you are introducing any kind of theory. So this is a balance scorecard. So I would do a little bit of just an intro on balance scorecard to talk about, okay, this is what the balance scorecard is for. And then I would go right into answering. I have my own, and I say, okay, financial perspective could be based on financial report. FOSSC is a cost center, so maybe my reports would be versus budgeted cost amounts, or maybe versus last year's figures. Talk about that. Customer perspective. Subsidiaries are internal customers, so I think very similar to what you guys had. Number of complaints, maybe do a survey and feedback just to see if we're doing what we should be doing at the FOSSC. And then internal process, looking at downtime, that's right. But mine is more a delay in the delivery of the reports that we promised them. Going paperless might be something else. Innovation and automation is the focus of the FOSSC. So that's probably what I'll put together. And then in the end, I would have a conclusion where just to say, at the end of the day, all of these metrics or measurements must contribute to the strategic goal of the company, of Norton, ultimately. And that is it. We've come to the question and answer session. If you have any kind of question, let me try and find the chat box while you guys formulate your questions. Aha. here it is. Oh, I don't know what happened earlier. But yeah, okay. So I do have the chat box now on my screen. If you have any kind of question, if you can just pop it into the chat box. At the same time, I think while you guys are formulating the chat box, Justina, do you want to talk about the bonus section?
Okay. Just maybe regarding the Q&A, you can ask anything related to the management case study.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
There's a question.
Yes, they can ask you to perform a SWOT analysis or PESTEL analysis. Definitely. It's not it would be very specific. The exam would ask you maybe to look at environmental analysis. There is no, I don't have a suggested solution. That was an example though. Sorry, Rami. I don't have a full answer to the previous question, but that would be what I would put together as discussion points. It's just a sample question. Sorry.
So I would say that the purpose of the sample question was just to show you how you should start approaching answering exam requirements. So that basically first you get an unseen scenario that you are going to get when you start to answer the exam. So it will more or less look like that. Or frankly, from my own experience, I know it's a little bit longer. And then it kind of gives you a kind of introduction perspective. And then afterwards, at the bottom, you should have some kind of points, requirements that you are going to get. And here, the purpose of that preview session was just to show you how you should attempt answering, and that you should, how you should brainstorm. And overall, why I think this is so important is that when you start attempting, when you sit in a room and you try to, when you basically start your exam, you see the requirement, and sometimes it may happen that you just don't know how to approach the question.
Yes.
Well, because you don't know, I don't know what the, I don't know, E from the pastel, the first E, what is it all about? You forgot it, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Rami, just to answer, Justina sort of answered your question. It's actually just a practice run. The question that you found earlier that I put up as a sample question is actually a lot shorter than the exam questions. The exam questions would normally have 2 requirements, and if you'll find that question actually only had 1 requirement because it talked about balanced scorecard and talking about the aspects of the balanced scorecard. What would have happened is there would probably be a second requirement to that, but you would be given more info. The email would be a lot longer. Is it enough to practice mock exams? I'd say it provides you with the practice that you need, but you would still need to try and attempt some mock exams if you want the full effect of how it is when you do the exam at exam conditions, because the mock exam will get you there.
I would say that if we are talking purely about practicing mocks, I would just give here 2 suggestions. First one is to practice the current mocks that are under the timed conditions, so they replicate what you are going to get on the exam day. And the second thing is to go through the past papers to have a look what were the requirements and what examiners kind of put together as a model answer. So, for example, when they were asking about this pastel or SWOT analysis, what kind of details of information they required? Because you can write 10 pages or you can write 1 page, and the point sometimes is that what I see that students get really annoyed with is that, for example, they spend a lot of time explaining something, and afterwards they get the same amount of points as someone else who kind of summarized everything in 1 page. And this is kind of our aim in the future workshops that I'm going to talk about in a second, is that you kind of brainstorm that you have like a plan, like a structure of how you should actually start attempting answering those requirements. So basically that you sit down, you read the requirements, and instead of saying, oh my gosh, I don't know how to answer, I have, nothing in my head right now because I'm, I don't know, freaked out or I'm panicking. Instead of doing that, you just say, okay, so now I need to write an introduction, then some bullet points, what I'm going to cover in my answer. So kind of more or less what we have done already in this previous session. And then you draw some conclusion. And remember, there always has to be a conclusion, because this is kind of shows that you are a good business professional.
Okay. Yeah. So I just want to address Rosa now. Rosa, with the question about F1, P1, and E1. So the main concentration of the MCS exam is normally the management level subjects, so the P2, F2, E2. But on rare occasions, they have tried and included P1, E1, and F1 too. That's the logic there would be that if you know the management level, you should know what's on the operational level. So don't freak out. Doesn't mean that you have to revise everything. But there may be occasions that you'll find some questions that touch on a little bit on the operational level subjects. I've got Quentin looking at Master Gateway. Would you agree to split 5 weeks, 3 weeks studying, 2 weeks practice? Okay, so for Quentin, I think the question there, it's studying and practice at the same time. I don't think, maybe I just didn't understand the way that the question is phrased. So it's not all 3 weeks continuous of studying and then 2 weeks of practice, right? You would try and interchange studying, and then at the end of the week, maybe try and practice one. This way, it kind of flows through your the way that you are studying, because practice is not something that you can do like daily and then pick up something. Sometimes when you practice, it's much better to do your practice mock, let's say each week. Maybe it's a weekly thing. You do the first week, and then you reassess yourself, and then you try and do the second one, and then reassess and see where you've gone wrong, what kind of issues you're having, work on those issues, and then try and attempt the next practice mock. There be units you would stress the importance of. Units as in topic areas. They are all important. Ravindra, okay, do we need to study? You need to have some knowledge of P2, F2, and I say E2. Definitely some of the topics will come up. You will find it's very similar to what we did now, right? Balanced scorecard is an E2 topic. And so as such, it's a bit of a theory. And when we did our answer, you can see we use the balanced scorecard as a structure to try and put together our answer. But our answers are all practical. They're not theory. That's what you'll need to glean from those P2, F2, and E2 topics. Okay, Rosa, I've addressed that one. Ravindra, yes. So the answer to your question, Ravindra, would be yes. There is an email, I think Justina, I'm not sure what the email address is. Justina can probably provide you with that.
It is either contact@practicetestacademy.com or casestudies@practicetestacademy.com.
Okay. Shaheen, CIMA's model answers are too long. Aha! What about straightforward answers? You think CIMA's model answers are too long? I actually think CIMA's answers are a little shorter than what I'm used to. Most students actually write a little bit longer. So the issue with answering, we'll probably cover it in future, I'd say, workshops. But to give you a bit of a hint on the answers, Student answers are rarely very straightforward. So when you're at the exam and you're trying to put together your answer, you cannot give a one-liner answer. So you need to be able to point out what you're trying to make. You make your point, but at the same time you need to explain that point. So the way you put together your answers, it's not just a one-liner answer. So that's why CIMA's model answers are like that. If you look at it, the point is on there. They talk about the point, and then they try and explain the point further down the paragraph. So the paragraphs are a little bit long. That's why CIMA's model answers are like that. They're actually quite short, I feel.
Yeah, just to give you maybe my perspective here, I actually went through some mocks of other online providers, and I can tell you, with one, I even found that for a 45-minute question, there was like 7 pages of answer. So yeah, CIMA is rather short, 1.5 page up to 2 pages. That's kind of optimum.
Yeah. It's very hard to gauge, though. I would actually add that it's very hard to gauge at the Pearson VUE platform, because you don't see the size of the page when you're answering, because it's the answer box is just kind of like I'd say 3/4 of your screen, and then when you're typing, you don't really know how long you've been typing. So it's very hard to gauge that you've done 4 pages or 2 pages or 1 page. But you get the general idea when you're typing. You can see how long your answers are. Okay, I think we kind of, there's no other questions that I can see for now. I'll wait if there are any others, but I'll let Justina continue with the slide. There's an ending slide, and this is the bonus slide. And I'll let Justina speak.
So I believe at the beginning I mentioned already that we are going to offer you some special bonus, and that would be 20% off on our follow-up online practice sessions. So we have prepared 2 workshops. Each of them, well, I would say that because you are staying here, I believe that you are really, really committed to passing your management case study exam. And I hope that after this webinar, you already have some idea of what to expect from the case study, that you know your role in the company, that you know what you should and you shouldn't do with the pre-seen materials. We've also touched upon how to approach analyzing the pre-seen, and the last crucial step that we talked about was about the practice of the mock exams. And then here you can divide it into current mocks and past mocks, past papers. And since I hope that now you've understand how important it is to practice of the real life mocks, we thought that you might be also interested in online live practice sessions, where with the support of our one and only Mary Jane, you could practice answering the exam requirements, just like what we did a few minutes ago, maybe without the technical issues only.
Yeah, I'll try, and I think I'll do twice. I'll do the 2 screen next time so I can see the chats better. It's just
the plan overall is to give you enough practice, and afterwards to give you enough confidence that you can go to the exam room and really be sure that you have enough knowledge and that is required of you to pass an exam. So we decided to split it into 2 separate workshops. The purpose of the first workshop is to kind of show you what is the structure, how to structure a management case study passing script. So here we will give you a little bit of the introduction, like what is that the examiners are constantly pointing out that students are not doing correctly, and what you should be doing in order to address their requirements. We will also tackle how you should answer a difficult task. And a difficult task is basically when we touched upon this already today, when you enter the classroom or the exam room, and you start to answer the question, and then you suddenly do not even know how to approach it. So here the purpose is to give you a structure, like instead of panicking, that you focus on really how I should plan my answer, and then you will always write something. Because the one thing that you definitely should not do is to leave the requirement empty. You should always write something, because we haven't really talked about that a lot today, but when you have the competencies and the marking grid, I mean, if you miss one requirement, there is a big likelihood that you may not get enough marks from that particular competency, and then you will basically fail the exam. So in order to be sure that you have enough marks to at least pass the competency, to be moderate, you need to answer in any way the questions. And afterwards, we will also, the main point of each of the workshop is that we are going to give you between 5 to 6 examples, just like what we did before. And then you, as a classroom, you will collectively come up with answers, with solutions. And then we will, I think the good example here was that, some people sometimes try to attempt answering the questions on a very high level, and some people are too detailed. And the point here is to kind of put that together and find maybe not the perfect answer, but find kind of like a middle ground. So that, if you try to attempt the answer in a too high level, this is not going to give you too much marks, but then you should also think what other people did, and that may kind of give you hints. Okay, I'm talking a lot. Sorry. On the second workshop, we are also going to focus on this live practice sessions, but it is going to be a workshop that is going to take place a weekend before the case study exam. So here we are going to focus more on what you should do and shouldn't do before the exam and on the exam. And then we will focus on the live practice session with roughly 5 examples. And then at the end, there will be a Q&A session where you are also going to get some last-minute tips for the exam. So if you're interested, if that sounds interesting to you, and I can assure you that I have not seen a similar offer anywhere on the internet. I can tell you from my own experience, when I was passing my case study, I actually took one-on-one tuition. And so we've covered a lot of matters over there. But one point that was really, really crucial for me and really made a difference was when we were actually brainstorming, answering the requirements. So exactly what Mary Jane has done with you. So I would suggest that if you found a lot of value in that practice session, that you sign up for our follow-up series. So we have 2. You can consider each separately or as a package. And today and tomorrow only, we are giving you 20% off. That's the link. So I'm going to pass that in our chat box just in case. And I'm also going to forward it to you later on, together with the replay of this webinar. So if you have any questions, shoot, we will try to answer them. And I'm very sorry for taking almost half an hour longer from what we expected.
Okay, just to end off on my end, good luck for your exam and good luck for your preparation. Like Justina said, we are, you may contact us. I believe Justina has provided the emails as well, email address. But if you are interested in any of these workshops, future workshop, then please sign on. Again, we will be doing some live online sessions, practicing answering some mock questions. So yeah, that will be at my end.
Okay, so everyone, thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to share all the slides and then the replay video. So just please allow a few hours so I can put everything together, and then I can share the link with you. So you will get the replay, you will get the slides, and I will also share over there the link with currently we have already applied the coupon codes over there. So each practice session, instead of 49, will cost 39. And if you are interested in both sessions, instead of 80, there will be 64 pounds per both. Okay, thank you very much for everything. And I hope to see you soon later. Okay, bye-bye and have a great day.